Have you ever wondered what could happen if the smallest act of kindness you give a stranger, just because it's the right thing, ends up changing your entire destiny? Would you risk everything, including your only job, to help someone in need when no one else is watching, especially if that someone could destroy or save your life with a single word? If you believe that kindness can be the seed of something extraordinary, or if you've ever doubted it, this story is for you. Midnight in Manhattan is a different kind of jungle. Under the city's neon glow, everyone seems to move with purpose. Stockbrokers in their last drinks before dawn, busboys sprinting with trays, Uber drivers circling blocks. For Jordan Lewis, it was just another graveyard shift at Sakura Crest. A Japanese restaurant as famous for its cherry blossom courtyard as for its menu that could bankrupt a mid-level manager. Most of the clientele were millionaires and socialites. Some were regulars, some ghosts passing through in designer shoes. To Jordan, they all blurred together, except tonight. Jordan had been working at Sakura Crest for 3 years. At 28, he was tall, dark-skinned, with sharp features and an easy smile that customers trusted. Beneath the smile was a core of resilience, the kind born of growing up in Brownsville with a single mother who ironed hotel sheets for 16 years so he could finish school. He wasn't supposed to end up a waiter. He'd promised his mom he wouldn't. But life had a way of rewriting dreams when bills stacked up and second chances were rare. The restaurant was winding down after another night of quiet drama. Engagements whispered over sake, breakups softened by mochi, the clink of glasses masking arguments about inheritance or betrayal. Jordan wiped down a table, watching his breath fog on the window. October in New York was always this kind of cold, the kind that gnawed at your bones if you let it. And then it happened. He heard a crash at the far end of the bar. Glass splintering, the unmistakable sound of a body sliding off a stool. Jordan moved fast, navigating the tangle of chairs and discarded napkins, and caught her before she could hit the marble floor. She was petite, probably late 30s, with platinum hair that looked like moonlight poured down her back, and a dress that screamed custom, even though it was soaked in spilled sake. "Easy, ma'am," Jordan said, steadying her. The word ma'am slipped out, part habit, part instinct. Rich customers like to be handled with deference, not pity, but she was in no state to protest. Her eyes, blue and glassy, blinked at him like she was searching for a memory. "Don't need charity," she muttered, but her legs buckled. Jordan caught her gently, holding her up with one arm while waving to the bar manager with the other. The staff stood frozen. A black man holding a drunk white woman at 2:30 in the morning wasn't an image any of them wanted on Instagram or in the police report. Jordan felt every stare in the room as he helped her to a quiet corner booth. The manager, Mr. Morrison, came bustling over, his lips pressed tight. Morrison was the kind of white guy who spoke in soft, clipped sentences and wore diversity like a necktie for company meetings, but never invited Jordan for post-shift drinks. Morrison's voice was soft but cold. "Just let her rest, Jordan. Her driver's coming." But the woman shook her head. "Number I don't want my driver. He talks. Too much." Her accent was faintly European, or maybe she just had the sort of voice that carried the weight of the world. She pressed a hand to her forehead. "I need water. Please." Jordan glanced at Morrison, who shrugged as if to say, "Your problem now." So Jordan fetched a glass of water, dabbing her dress with a napkin, careful not to touch too much. "Here you go, miss," he said quietly. She smiled then, weak but real. "You have kind eyes," she whispered. He wasn't sure how to respond, so he stayed silent, scanning the room for trouble. He could feel the security camera blinking in the corner. He knew how these stories went, how easily a simple act could be twisted, how a handshake could become an accusation. The woman tried to sit up straight, but her head lolled. "I don't want to go home," she said half to herself. "Home is empty." There was a sadness in her voice that Jordan recognized. He'd heard it in his mother's voice the night his father never came back, in his own voice after another rejection letter from grad school. The sadness of people who have everything but the one thing they really need, connection. Jordan's phone buzzed in his pocket, a message from his mother. "Don't stay too late. I worry." He typed back quickly, "All good. Almost done." Just then, the woman's head snapped up. "What's your name?" she asked. "Jordan. Jordan Lewis." She smiled again, the edges of her lips trembling. "You remind me of someone. My brother's son, maybe. Always helping. Never asking." He didn't know what to say, so he said nothing. Outside, a taxi honked, the world still spinning. "Let me call you a ride, okay?" he offered. She hesitated but finally nodded. As he typed her address into the ride app, he caught a glimpse of the screen. Upper West Side. The kind of penthouse that existed in his dreams, not his reality. When the car arrived, Jordan helped her into the back seat, making sure she was buckled in. "Thank you, Jordan Lewis," she said, voice soft as silk. "You're different. Don't let them tell you you're not." As the car pulled away, Jordan felt a strange pang in his chest. Was it worry, or just the weight of a night that would not let him forget? He walked back inside, dreading the conversation he'd have with Morrison. But to his surprise, Morrison only nodded and said, "Go home, Jordan. I'll finish up." Jordan left, walking the 12 blocks to his apartment in Harlem. The city felt different, quieter, lonelier. He replayed the night in his mind over and over, wondering if he'd done too much or not enough. The next morning, Jordan woke up to a voicemail from the restaurant. "Come in before your shift," Morrison said, voice clipped. No explanation. Jordan dressed carefully, choosing a clean shirt and his only good pair of shoes. He walked to Sakura Crest with a knot in his stomach, replaying every moment from the night before. When he arrived, the dining room was empty. Morrison sat at a table, a folder open in front of him. "Sit," Morrison said. Jordan sat, folding his hands to hide the tremor in his fingers. "There's been a complaint," Morrison said. "A customer felt uncomfortable. Said you were too forward. Management takes these things seriously." Jordan's heart pounded. "All I did was help her get home safely," he said, forcing calm. Morrison didn't look up from the file. "It's not about what you did, it's how it's perceived." He flipped the file shut. "You're on leave." Indefinite. Jordan stared at him, disbelief flooding his chest. "You're punishing me for helping?" Morrison's eyes were cold. "I'm protecting the restaurant." Jordan stood, his dignity the only thing left to him. "You're protecting yourself." He left the restaurant, not bothering to say goodbye. The city outside was still waking up, indifferent to his pain. He called his mother. She listened, then said, "You did right, son. That's all that matters." But as Jordan walked home, he wondered if kindness really was enough. Have you ever woken up with everything you thought you had? Your job, your routine, your sense of belonging, suddenly yanked out from under you, all because you made a choice that others didn't have the heart to make? Would you fight to set things right, even when it seems like the whole system is designed to erase your voice? If you've ever felt injustice burning beneath your skin, you'll understand what came next for Jordan Lewis. 3 days passed. Each morning, Jordan woke before dawn, staring at the ceiling of his tiny apartment, the silence screaming at him. He was used to surviving, to making do, but this was different. He'd done nothing wrong, and yet he'd been cast out. Just another black man, on leave, a silent warning to the rest. His mother, Mrs. Lewis, noticed the change immediately. She found him sitting at the kitchen table, his hands idle, his eyes fixed on something far away. "Baby, you want me to talk to the restaurant?" she offered. He shook his head. "It wouldn't matter, Ma. They've already decided." But the city had its own way of moving forward, with or without him. Rent was due in 2 weeks. Bills piled up in neat, passive-aggressive stacks. He filled out applications at other restaurants, smaller places, diners, cafes. But in every interview, there was a question they didn't ask out loud. "Why aren't you working at Sakura Crest anymore?" It was a scarlet letter he couldn't wash off. Then, just as he was losing hope, Jordan received a message. It came late at night, while he was scrolling job boards. The number was unknown. "Meet me at the Lantern Cafe, tomorrow, 10 a.m. Heiress." He stared at the message, heart racing. VS. It could only be the woman from the bar, the mysterious billionaire he'd helped. Was this a trap? A test? He almost didn't go. But when you have nothing left, sometimes the smallest possibility is enough to get you out of bed. The Lantern Cafe was an old-school diner in Greenwich Village, the kind of place with chipped mugs and sticky vinyl booths. Jordan arrived early, his nerves raw, and ordered coffee he barely touched. 10 minutes passed, then 20. At exactly 10:12, she swept in. Gone was the drunken mess in a designer dress. Instead, she wore a navy trench coat, her platinum hair pulled back, sunglasses hiding her eyes. Yet something about her was unmistakable. The quiet authority, the sense that the room shifted to accommodate her presence. "Mr. Lewis," she said, sliding into the booth across from him. Jordan stood, almost out of habit, then sat down awkwardly. "Ms.?" she smiled. "Call me Veronica. Veronica Stein." The surname pricked his memory. Stein, owners of hotels, luxury developments, philanthropy galas. She was, by all accounts, the kind of woman who could buy and sell whole city blocks. "I'm sorry for the trouble at Sakura Crest," she said, surprising him. "I know about your leave of absence. Morrison thinks I'm still too tipsy to remember, but I remember everything." Jordan blinked, unsure where this was going. "I was just doing my job. Anyone would have helped." She shook her head. "No, Mr. Lewis. Most people, especially in places like that, do what's safest, not what's right." There was a pause as she took off her glasses, revealing tired blue eyes that seemed to carry a storm. "I need your help," she said quietly. Jordan nearly laughed. "You need my help?" She nodded, serious. "I've been investigating some things at Sakura Crest for a while now. Morrison's hiring practices, the way he treats certain staff, the way he talks about maintaining the restaurant's standards, when what he really means is—" She hesitated, searching for the word. "Purity, exclusivity. I know you saw it too." Jordan nodded slowly. "I saw a lot, but I needed the job." "So did a lot of people," she replied, almost whispering. "But Morrison's been running out everyone who doesn't fit his image. He's clever. He never leaves evidence. He always frames it as customer comfort or professionalism. But I see the pattern, and I want to break it." For the first time, Jordan saw the weight she carried, not just as a billionaire, but as someone trying to do right in a world that rewards the opposite. "I want you to help me build a case against Morrison," Veronica continued. "Not just for yourself, but for every employee he's pushed out, every life he's bent to his will." He stared at her, unsure if he should be grateful or afraid. "Why me?" She smiled, small and sad. "Because you still believe in decency, because you didn't hesitate to help me, even though it cost you, and because you know how to pay attention to details, the kind of details Morrison thinks nobody notices." Jordan felt a strange fire flicker in his chest. It had been a long time since someone had trusted him with anything important. "What do you need me to do?" he asked quietly. She handed him a folder, thick, heavy, filled with documents, emails, records of layoffs and hiring patterns, screenshots of reviews and performance reports. "Read these, take notes, tell me what doesn't fit, what doesn't smell right. I'll handle the rest." Jordan left the cafe with the folder tucked beneath his coat, feeling the first spark of hope he'd had in days. On the subway ride home, he started flipping through the pages, at first tentatively, then with mounting outrage. There it was, in black and white. The pattern. Black and Latino waitstaff shuffled to the kitchen or fired for minor mistakes. White staff promoted after far greater errors. Customer complaints manufactured and signed by names that didn't appear on any guest list. It was so systematic, so careful. But Veronica was right. No one covers their tracks perfectly. And Jordan knew exactly where to look. That night, Jordan called his friend Marcus, another former waiter at Sakura Crest who'd been let go for lateness that was never really lateness. Together, they began compiling a list. Names, dates, conversations overheard, schedules that didn't add up. They messaged other ex-staff, gathering stories, building a chain. For the first time, Jordan felt less like a victim and more like a detective. His anger gave him purpose. Every story they uncovered made him realize that his own pain was just one thread in a much larger tapestry of injustice. A week later, Jordan met Veronica again, this time in her office, a penthouse suite overlooking Central Park, where the city spread out below like a toy. She greeted him not as a billionaire, but as a partner. What did you find? She asked, eyes bright with anticipation. Jordan laid out the timeline, the list of names, the patterns. It's all here, he said, pride creeping into his voice. You were right. Morrison isn't just prejudiced, he's strategic. He uses the fear of unemployment to keep people quiet. He targets the vulnerable, the people who can't fight back. Veronica smiled, a glimmer of victory in her eyes. We're going to take it public, Jordan. We're going to make sure he can never do this again. There was a knock at the door. Veronica's assistant stepped in, holding an envelope. Ms. Stein, the press are requesting a statement about the investigation at Sakura Crest. Veronica turned to Jordan. Would you like to be the one to speak? Jordan hesitated. The thought of standing before cameras, his story on the record for everyone to see, frightened him. But then he remembered the humiliation, the ache of losing everything for doing right. He stood straighter. I will, he said, voice steady. The next day, the press conference was held in a small conference room in Midtown. Journalists crowded in, cameras flashing. Veronica introduced Jordan, then stepped back, giving him the stage. Jordan took a breath and began. 3 years ago, I started working at Sakura Crest. I thought it was just a job, a way to pay bills, keep my head down, take care of my family. But over time, I saw things I couldn't ignore. I saw good people pushed out for reasons that never made sense. I saw the color of someone's skin become more important than the quality of their work. He paused, looking at the faces in the crowd. I lost my job for helping a customer. But what I really lost was the illusion that you can survive by staying quiet. Today I'm speaking up, not just for myself, but for everyone who's ever been told to accept less because of who they are. As he finished, a ripple of applause swept the room. Veronica stepped forward, resting a reassuring hand on his shoulder. Justice, she said quietly, starts with one voice. Today that voice was yours. Reflection and connection. What do you see in Jordan's journey so far? When the line between justice and injustice is so thin, sometimes all it takes is one person brave enough to speak up, and everything can change. Jordan's story isn't just about fighting for his own dignity. It's about reigniting faith in kindness and the power of community. Sometimes the strongest person is the one willing to stand up for the vulnerable, even when their own life is uncertain. Have you ever stood up for someone else? What do you think is waiting for Jordan as he steps into this new chapter of his life? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel to catch the next part of this inspiring journey. Chapter 3 will reveal an unexpected twist, a reward greater than justice itself, in a future no one saw coming. The dawn that broke over Cedar Heights felt unlike any Jordan had seen before, not because the sky was any clearer, or because the sunlight was any kinder, but because, for the first time in his life, he felt a glimmer of hope instead of just a desperate wish to survive another day. Word of the confrontation at the restaurant had spread faster than wildfire. By sunrise, the group chat among Cedar Heights High's black students buzzed with updates, speculation, and, for once, a sense of pride. But hope, Jordan knew, was a fragile thing. He stepped out of his apartment that morning, his mind racing through possibilities. Would people treat him differently now? Would Principal Meadows follow through on her promise? What if nothing changed at all? As he waited for the bus with his little sister Kayla, the air felt heavier than usual. Their neighbors, many of whom had quietly watched their family struggle for years, now met Jordan's eyes with cautious admiration, a subtle nod, or in the case of Mrs. Daniels from 2B, a whispered, "Good job, baby." The small acknowledgments meant more than he could say. Kayla squeezed his hand as the bus rumbled down the block. "Are you scared?" she asked. Jordan paused. Was he? Maybe. But what he felt most was tired. Tired of feeling invisible. Tired of being careful. Tired of wondering when the next accusation would fall. But Kayla's wide eyes needed more than exhaustion. "A little," he admitted softly. "But mostly, I'm proud." She grinned, gap-toothed and hopeful. "I'm proud of you too." School that morning was a battlefield of whispers and sidelong glances. Some students ignored him, heads down, determined to pretend nothing happened. Others, especially those who looked like him, gave him high fives, fist bumps, or a quiet, "Respect, man." But the biggest surprise came when Jordan's former classmate, Ethan, One of the white boys, who'd once been part of the crowd that mocked him, approached him in the hallway. "Hey, Jordan," Ethan said, his voice low. I just wanted to say I'm sorry for not saying something sooner." Jordan didn't know what to say. He'd always pictured this conversation happening with shouting. Maybe a fight. Instead, he nodded. "Takes guts to admit that," he replied, "but you can still say something now." Ethan's eyes flicked to the lockers, where a group of boys watched them with tight jaws and stiff posture. "Yeah," Ethan said, straightening. "Maybe it's time." Later that day, the school held an emergency assembly. Principal Meadows stood on the stage, flanked by the district superintendent and, shockingly, a local news crew. Jordan's heart thudded as he was called up to the microphone. He didn't want to give a speech. He hadn't planned on being a symbol. But as he looked out at the sea of faces, some skeptical, some quietly hopeful, some openly angry, he realized this wasn't about him anymore. "My name is Jordan Carter," he began, his voice wavering only a little. "And for a long time, I thought keeping my head down was the only way to get by. But it's not. Silence never made anything better. We all deserve to feel safe, to feel seen, to feel like we belong. And it shouldn't take a fight for people to listen." He paused. "What happened to me, being blamed for something I didn't do, happens to a lot of kids in this town. We're tired. We're not going away." It wasn't a grand speech, but it didn't have to be. The gym fell quiet, and Principal Meadows stepped forward, voice solemn. "Starting today, Cedar Heights High will begin a review of all disciplinary actions from the past 3 years. We will be working with a community panel to ensure fairness, and we will not tolerate discrimination in any form." Applause. Not thunderous, but real. But as the news crew packed up, as teachers patted his back, as classmates took selfies and posted hashtags, Jordan realized something unsettling. True change was more than promises on a stage. For weeks, life at school slowly shifted. Teachers stopped ignoring microaggressions in class. The security guard at the entrance nodded at Jordan and even smiled. The students who had always felt invisible started to speak up. One girl shared her story of being searched for looking suspicious. Another recounted being passed over for the honors program despite perfect grades. For the first time, their stories didn't get swept aside. But it wasn't all progress. Some parents complained about reverse discrimination. The white boy who'd framed Jordan was quietly transferred to another school, his family citing safety concerns. Online, trolls posted nasty comments. At home, Jordan's mother fielded phone calls from relatives, some worried, some proud, some simply confused. "I just want you to be safe," she whispered one night, sitting at the edge of his bed. "I will be, Mom," Jordan promised. "I've got people looking out for me now." And it was true. The local NAACP chapter offered to help. Neighbors brought over casseroles. A GoFundMe page started by a stranger raised enough money to pay off months of overdue bills. But the most unexpected support came from the restaurant where it all started. A week after the assembly, Mr. Nakamura, the Japanese restaurant's owner, called Jordan and his mother in for a meeting. They expected more apologies, maybe a settlement. Instead, Mr. Nakamura bowed deeply, tears in his eyes. "My family came to this country with nothing," he explained. "We were treated as outsiders for a long time. I let my manager's actions go unchecked because I was afraid. Afraid of losing customers, afraid of rocking the boat. But you reminded me what matters." He handed Jordan a crisp envelope. "It's not much, but it's a scholarship for you. Use it however you wish. For school, for your family, for your future. And if you ever need a job, there will always be a place for you here." Jordan blinked, stunned. His mother wept openly. For the first time, the restaurant felt less like a battlefield and more like a home. Months passed. Cedar Heights changed, slowly but surely. More students of color joined student government. The school newspaper started running real stories about discrimination and resilience. When Kayla won her first science fair ribbon, the principal herself handed it to her. One crisp autumn afternoon, Jordan walked by the river with his mother and Kayla. The air smelled like turning leaves and distant barbecue. He looked at the city skyline and realized that, for the first time in a long time, he could picture a future that wasn't just about survival. "Do you regret it?" his mother asked. "Standing up?" Jordan shook his head. "Number. Because maybe now someone else will know they're not alone. And that, more than any scholarship, more than any headline, was the reward he hadn't dared to hope for. Reflection and connection. Sometimes justice arrives in small waves. A kind word, a neighbor's casserole, a single voice speaking truth to power. Jordan's story is proof that when one person stands up, it gives courage to others who have stayed silent for too long. Change doesn't always come quickly, and it rarely arrives without resistance. But it does come when we fight, when we hope, and when we choose to see each other's pain as our own. Have you ever witnessed a moment when one person's courage changed a whole community? What would you do if you were in Jordan's shoes? Share your thoughts in the comments, subscribe for more real stories, and remember, even when the world seems unmovable, a single voice can start an avalanche. Thank you for being part of this journey. Stay tuned for more stories that remind us kindness, courage, and justice are never wasted.